Elena Hale felt her body go numb as she stood at the grand entrance of the St. Augustine Cathedral. The lavish hall glistened with gold, the scent of roses heavy in the air, but to her, it smelled like a tomb. Her father's firm grip on her arm was the only thing keeping her from collapsing. To the guests, this was the wedding of the century, two powerful families binding themselves together under sacred vows. To Elena, it was her own funeral. Her fingers trembled as she clutched a bouquet of white lilies, her knuckles pale beneath the bangles her mother insisted she wear. She could hardly hear the choir or notice the dazzling decorations. All she felt was the storm of betrayal ripping through her chest. Governor Marcus Hale walked beside her, his face unmoving, carved from cold stone. He had sold her to a man she barely knew, pretending it was duty, when in truth it was power. Claudia Hale sat in the front pew, pretending this was normal, pretending her daughter hadn't cursed them all earlier that morning. Even Victor, the brother who once promised to protect her, had abandoned her, mumbling about what's best for the family. And apparently, what was best was handing her over to Damien Cross, a man whose reputation was more terrifying than comforting. A billionaire whose influence stretched across the city of Elysium, feared by politicians and gangsters alike. As they neared the altar, her heart raced. Damien stood waiting, tall and composed in his black suit, his dark eyes colder than iron. Known for ruthlessness in business and whispered to make rivals vanish, he looked every bit the predator her instincts warned her about. When he extended his hand, she recoiled. Her father's grip tightened, a warning. The guests began to murmur. Then, before she could think, Elena tore free and ran. Gasps erupted through the cathedral as her heels clattered on the marble floor, her veil trailing behind like a ghost. Guards moved to block her, but she shoved past, desperation fueling her. "Stop her!" Marcus barked. She sprinted harder, but just as she reached the heavy doors, an unyielding grip clamped around her wrist. She spun, wide-eyed. Damien stood there, unmoved, his gaze dark and dangerous. "You can run, wife," he murmured, his voice like steel. "But you can't escape me." Her heart pounded as she bolted through the streets, dress dragging her down, ignoring the whispers and gasps of Elysium's elite. Her only thought was escape. And she knew exactly where to go. The abandoned bungalow her grandmother Celeste had left behind on the city's outskirts. When she finally stumbled inside, she locked the door and collapsed to the dusty floor, tears soaking into her gown. The betrayal of her family cut deeper than anything Damien could do. Exhaustion claimed her until she drifted into restless sleep. But when she awoke, the scent of coffee lingered in the air. She froze. No one was supposed to be here. Heart hammering, she crept toward the kitchen. And there he was, Damien Cross. Calm, composed, in a crisp white shirt, stirring coffee like he owned the house. "Good morning," he said, his deep voice unreadable. "I've come to take you home, wife." Her fists clenched. "I ran away. I will never be your wife." Damien only sighed, rubbing his temple. "You already are, Elena." Before she could retort, her blood ran cold. Her father's black SUV pulled up outside. Claudia stood beside it, Victor at her side. The door burst open, and Victor stormed in, fury etched on his face. "You think you can humiliate us?" he growled, grabbing her wrist. "You betrayed me." Elena shouted, shoving him back. But his grip tightened. And then, slap. Her world spun, her cheeks stinging from the blow. Victor had never hit her before. "You're coming home whether you like it or not," he spat, dragging her toward the waiting car. Elena fought, but it was useless. She was shoved inside. Damien slid in beside her, calm and patient. Leaning closer, his whisper made her blood boil. "You can fight, Elena. You can run. But in the end, you belong to me." The car ride to Damien's estate was silent except for Elena's broken sobs. She pressed against the door, trembling with exhaustion and heartbreak. Her family had sold her as if she were nothing more than an asset, dismissing her tears and pleas as noise. Governor Marcus stared ahead like stone. Claudia avoided her gaze, and Victor, the brother she once trusted, sat stiffly, indifferent, though his handprint still burned on her cheek. When they arrived at Damien's mansion, a fortress of marble, steel, and security in the heart of Elysium, her family disembarked without a word. Marcus turned once more, his voice flat, final. "You are married now, Elena. That is the end of it." Then they left her standing at the gates of the life she never wanted. She had run, she had begged, she had fought. And still, here she was. A silent maid led her into a room larger than her entire childhood home. But its grandeur felt like a prison cell. Collapsing onto the bed, still in her wedding dress, she sobbed until exhaustion dragged her into a dreamless sleep. When Damien entered later, he found her curled in misery, tear-streaked, her cheek marked red from Victor's slap. His jaw tightened. Nobody had the right to touch her but him. He traced the bruise gently before applying ointment with a precision that felt almost reverent. For a man known for cruelty, the softness in his touch was startling. He wasn't a stranger to control, but Elena was different. He remembered seeing her once, long before their families tangled in business. He'd noticed her kindness, her effortless beauty, her laughter with the staff. When her father came begging him for protection, Damien had named only one condition: she would marry him. It wasn't simply about shielding her from danger. He wanted her name bound to his, wanted her untouchable under his shadow. By morning, Elena awoke restless. The bruise on her cheek had faded slightly, but the betrayal weighed heavier than before. She was still here, trapped, caged. She vowed she would escape, even if she had to play along first. Wandering the mansion, she found Damien in the gym, his powerful frame working through weights with sharp precision. His smirk met her fury when he caught her watching. "You can't just stand there staring, wife," he teased, voice rich and smooth. Her blood boiled. "For the last time, I am not your wife." Unbothered, Damien reached for a folder and handed it to her. She froze. Inside lay a marriage certificate, stamped and signed, her signature scrawled neatly at the bottom. "This is fake," she hissed. "I never signed this. You think I'd go to all this trouble without making it legal?" His amusement was infuriating. Her chest burned with rage, but she forced herself calm. If escape required strategy, she would bide her time. "I need to go home," she said evenly. "To collect my clothes." "There's already a wardrobe full for you upstairs," he countered smoothly. "I want my own things." After a long pause, he nodded. "Fine. Get dressed. Meet me at the car in 5. Moments later, Elena sat rigid in his sleek black sports car, glaring out the window. Damien drove silently, stealing glances at her profile, anger burning beautifully across her face. She despised him, yet he found himself entranced. When they arrived at the Hale estate, Elena leapt out before Damien could open the door for her. Storming inside, she found her family calmly eating breakfast, as though nothing had happened. Betrayal churned inside her chest, but she masked her pain with cold dignity. She packed her belongings with sharp efficiency, leaving behind every gift they had ever given her. Damien leaned against the doorway, watching her with unreadable eyes. Then Claudia's voice drifted from the dining hall. "Damien, come join us for breakfast." Elena's fury ignited. She stormed out, voice trembling with rage. "You are not my family. I want nothing from you." Victor scoffed. "You're being dramatic, Elena." But Damien's sharp look silenced him instantly. "Let's go," Damien said firmly. With her suitcase in hand, Elena walked out, not just leaving her house, but severing ties forever. Elena sat stiffly in the passenger seat as Damien drove. She wasn't focused on him, though his presence filled the car like a shadow. Instead, her mind clung to her plan. She had already booked a ticket to Johannesburg. Tonight, she would be free. As they passed a bustling supermarket near the airport, Elena pressed a hand to her stomach. "Stop the car. I need a restroom." Damien studied her, skeptical, but pulled into the lot. She slipped out quickly, taking her small bag with her. He waited and waited. 15 minutes. 30. Finally, his phone rang. "Sir," came his guard's voice, urgent. "Your wife is boarding a flight to Johannesburg." Damien smirked, his patience icy. "Clever girl," he muttered, "but not clever enough." Instead of chasing her, he drove home. By the time he arrived, his private jet was fueled and waiting. He showered, dressed in black, and boarded with calm precision. "Elena Hale thinks she can run," he told his Lieutenant Ezra over the phone. "She's wrong. Have eyes on her the second she lands." Meanwhile, Elena exhaled in relief as her plane touched down in Johannesburg. She had done it. She was free. At the hotel check-in, she was told she'd been upgraded to a luxury suite at no charge. Suspicious, but too exhausted to argue, she accepted. That evening, dressed simply, she ventured to the hotel lounge for dinner. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to relax. Wine in hand, she almost smiled, until the waiter returned. "Your bill has already been paid." Her stomach dropped. "By who?" The waiter gestured to a shadowed corner. Her gaze followed, and her blood turned to ice. Damien sat there, sipping whiskey, watching her with a smirk. Surprised to see me, wife. The glass nearly slipped from her hands. She had crossed borders, changed cities, and still, he had found her. Her fury flared. How did you? He rose smoothly. You're mine, Elena. I protect what's mine. No. Her voice shook as she stood. I am not yours. If you don't leave, I'll scream, she threatened. Would you? His smirk deepened. Her lungs filled, and she shouted, Help! This man is stalking me. He's trying to kidnap me. The lounge fell silent, eyes turning. But Damien remained calm. I'm sorry, he said smoothly to the shocked crowd. My wife's upset. I forgot her favorite lingerie for our honeymoon. Laughter rippled. Sympathy shifted to him. Before she could object, he scooped her onto his shoulder, carrying her out like she weighed nothing. Back in their suite, he dropped her onto the bed. She shot to her feet, seething. Why won't you let me go? What is your problem? His eyes darkened. You belong to me. Her fury snapped. She raised her hand to slap him, but he caught her wrist effortlessly, pinning her to the wall. His body loomed too close, his scent drowning her senses. Let me go, she demanded, though her voice wavered. You don't understand, Damien whispered. Then his lips crashed onto hers, rough, consuming, possessive. And despite herself, Elena's body betrayed her. She melted into him. The flight back to Elysium was heavy with silence. Elena stared out the window, refusing to look at Damien, while he sat calmly beside her, his dominance pressing against her like a constant weight. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. She could feel his control in every breath. When they reached his estate, preparations were already underway for her brother Victor's wedding. Hairdressers, stylists, and makeup artists were waiting, courtesy of Damien's planning. Elena submitted to it with a cold resolve, and when she finally saw her reflection, she smirked bitterly. If they wanted her at that farce of a wedding, she would show up like the true bride, dressed in white, radiant, unforgettable. At the ceremony, whispers erupted the moment she entered with Damien at her side. Her family stiffened, but she ignored them. When the host prepared to welcome Victor's bride, Elena snatched the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, she said sweetly, Damien and I never exchanged vows. My brother has been kind enough to let us share them before his ceremony begins. Gasps spread like wildfire. Victor's face reddened with fury, but before he could react, Damien calmly joined Elena on stage. To the shock of all, he spoke the words, and Elena echoed them. Rings were exchanged, vows spoken. And just like that, what she thought would humiliate her family only cemented her marriage before hundreds of witnesses. The ride home was suffocatingly quiet. Elena stared at her hands, the ring glinting mockingly. She had tried to take control, but instead, she had handed Damien a public victory. She was no longer just a reluctant bride. She was his wife, undeniably, irrevocably. Days later, suffocating in his mansion, she demanded air. The guards refused to open the gate without Damien's permission. Rage boiling, she stormed to his office. Let me out, she screamed. Damien leaned back lazily in his chair, his smirk infuriating. You may go, with a driver. Defeated but determined, Elena agreed. That night, she visited a high-end lounge. She chose a secluded booth, ordered a mojito, and deliberately flirted with a handsome stranger. Laughter, light touches, just enough for Damien's guards to see. By the time she returned home, he already knew. He entered her room silently, eyes burning. She stood her ground, chin high, though her pulse raced. Where were you, wife? His voice was dangerously low. Out. None of your concern, she spat. In a blur, he pinned her to the bed, his strength overwhelming. Look at me, he ordered, his grip firm but not cruel. You ignore my calls. You toy with other men. Do you want punishment? Before she could retort, his lips crashed against hers. Possessive, consuming, undeniable. She hated him. She hated herself for wanting more. Her body betrayed her again, answering his dominance with equal hunger. When he finally pulled away, smirking at her flushed cheeks, she hurled a pillow at him. He caught it easily, laughing under his breath as he walked out, leaving her shaking with rage and confusion. Seeking peace, Elena slipped into the garden days later. But peace eluded her. At the far end, Damien sat with a regal woman in emerald silk. His mother, Lady Isolde. Elena stilled, unseen, as she overheard their words. Has she learned to love you yet? Lady Isolde asked. Damien's voice cracked with exhaustion. I've tried everything. But she hates me. Maybe I should let her go. Elena's breath caught. Do you love her? Yes. The word was instant, raw. Lady Isolde's gaze softened. Then stop forcing her. Love can't be demanded. Elena staggered back, her chest aching. Damien loved her? He had sacrificed business, wealth, even power, all to protect her family. She had despised him while he bled for her. Her heart twisted with emotions she could no longer untangle. And when Damien's dark eyes suddenly lifted, finding hers across the garden, she ran. Elena slammed her bedroom door, trembling. Damien loved her. He had given up everything for her, and she had hated him blindly. She pressed her hands to her face, torn apart by guilt, anger, and something deeper she couldn't name. When the knock came, she already knew it was him. The door opened slowly. Damien entered, his steps hesitant, so unlike the confident predator she knew. Are you okay? He asked softly. No, she whispered. Then tell me everything. And he did. He told her how Marcus Hale had begged for protection, how debts and enemies threatened their family, how he had cut ties with empires, surrendered territories, and sacrificed fortunes to shield her from danger. I never wanted to cage you, he said, voice steady but raw. I thought if you were mine, I could make you love me. I was wrong. Tears blurred her vision. You should have told me. Would you have listened? Her silence was the answer. I'm sorry, she whispered at last. I didn't see it. And now, I can't stop thinking about you. I think I'm falling for you. Something snapped between them. Damien closed the space, his hands cupping her face, his lips devouring hers in a kiss that was both desperate and tender. Elena melted into him, clinging, surrendering, choosing him for the first time. That night, she gave herself to him fully. No fear, no defiance, only fire. Damien was slow, reverent, worshipful. He treated her as something sacred, whispering against her skin, "You belong to me." And for the first time, she didn't resist. She wanted him. She wanted everything. By morning, sunlight bathed the room in gold. Elena lay in Damien's arms, her cheek against his chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. For once, she wasn't afraid. Thinking about running again, wife, he murmured, half asleep. She smiled faintly. No, not anymore. He kissed her softly, his eyes dark with something deeper than possession, love. And for the first time, she welcomed it. A year later, the Cross Mansion overflowed with laughter and music. Guests raised champagne glasses to celebrate the union that had once been forged in chaos. On the balcony, Elena stood in an ivory gown, a breeze teasing the fabric. Damien approached, sliding his arms around her waist. Happy anniversary, Mrs. Cross, he whispered, kissing her neck. She turned to face him, smiling. I never thought I'd be happy with that name. You changed me, Elena, he said simply. Her heart swelled as she touched his face. You never forced me to love you. You just never gave up. He smirked knowingly. Because I always knew you were mine. And I knew you were mine too. Their lips met as fireworks painted the night sky. What began as a cage of power and sacrifice had become something unbreakable.